All right, welcome back, everyone. It is time for our midweek mental health boost. So here's a question. Do you consider your partner, your spouse, to be your best friend?
Our friend Dr. Laura Saunders, a psychologist at the Institute of Living, she's joining us now to talk more about this. Before we even begin, I got to say that the part of the demise of my relationship with Paul was I insisted he did every single thing with me, and if he didn't, there was a sign that something was wrong with the relationship, and boy, did I learn a lesson.
So, hello, friends. Happy Wednesday. And that's a perfect example of not putting all your eggs in one basket, especially when they're $9 a dozen. So we need to diversify a little bit and really look at what best friend means to someone.
So let's talk about some of the pros and cons, because at first, I mean, of course, it's just pros. And I think of Dennis as my best friend. I have other female friends, but we really do have a good friendship and even started with a friendship. So is friendship important in our romantic relationships as a foundation?
I think friendship is absolutely important, because let's think of what friendship is. It's common interests, it's shared values, it's similar senses of humor, right? There's a lot of foundational things that are very, very important. But I think what people need to be careful about is not relying solely on your spouse to get all your needs met. It is so important to have other friends. Like, you might have an interest that your spouse doesn't share. So do you give up that interest because your spouse doesn't share it? Or do you find a friend that shares that same interest with you? So it really is about having your spouse be someone you feel very close to and have so many of those common values with, but at the same time, having other friends to meet other needs.
Yeah, Paul, again, I'm sorry I'm going back to Paul, but we became such good friends that we lost the intimacy in our relationship, which was not good.
Right. So that's some of the differences there, right? So in a romantic relationship, what the intimacy does is it creates a special bond. And so in most circumstances, right, that special bond is just something you share with that one person. So the intimacy, the physical intimacy, creates that special bond that helps you feel more emotionally vulnerable and connected to that person. However, if you like to play backgammon, or if you like to play golf, or if you like to go to bookstores and hang out and read books, and your spouse doesn't like to do that, you need friends to do that with.
So basically, you also say we need to manage expectations. If we think our spouse is going to be our best friend, our psychologist, our everything, then we start getting disappointed in them, because probably nobody can meet all those responsibilities.
No one can meet all those responsibilities. And that's why having some other friends that you do things with. Also, sometimes you need another person outside of your relationship to bounce ideas off of. You might be having some difficulties in your relationship, right? This is not the 18 or in the early 1900s where you only lived to 50, so you're only married for 20 years, right? Or 30 years. I mean, now marriages and relationships are lasting much longer. So you need to work out a lot of things in order to manage a long-term relationship. And sometimes you need friends to do that with.
Is there any amount of dependency that's good, or it's all bad?
So there's a difference between being dependent or codependent, where I expect this person to meet all my needs, and being interdependent. They can meet some needs. I can meet some needs myself. If I like to go for walks and my spouse doesn't like to go for walks, I go for a walk on my own, right? I can be interdependent. So I can depend on them for some things. I can be independent for some things, and I can find friends to do other things with. So it's not either or, it's like an interdependency.
Okay. All right.
So if you feel like maybe that part of your relationship is suffering, like there's distance, or, people get to the point where they're having, lots of responsibility in their life, and maybe some of the fun has gone away because they're tackling all the big things. Is it the reverse is true? You should try and become better friends and do what friends do, like new things together?
When we look at relationships over the long course, there are phases of relationships, especially if you have children, right, where the focus and the energy is on the day-to-day lives of your children and managing all of the different pieces to keep that going. So it does really require nurturing a relationship to keep it alive. So having a date night. And again, it's not always about spending money. It could be going for a walk together. It could be having a special dinner in, once the kids go to bed. So it's doing things to nurture the relationship, to create that longevity, but understanding that there are long phases of relationships that are very difficult, especially around child raising, especially if an adult is taking care of an elderly parent. So there's a lot of different phases of relationships that need to be acknowledged as being difficult, and extra steps need to be taken to create that emotional closeness.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Laura Saunders. A very important topic, and I'm glad we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, pros and cons there.
Pros and cons there.
Have a great day.
All right, thanks, Dr. Saunders. All right, still ahead on your Wednesday.